Mark Whittaker lived the kind of life that looked perfect on paper. His bio read like a glossy alumni magazine blurb, tenured professor at a respected liberal arts college. Specializes in postmodern theory. Occasional contributor to The Atlantic. Lives with longtime partner Sophie. Avid hiker. Dog dad to Rilke. It was the kind of thing that made people say, wow, he's really got it all figured out. Every day had a rhythm to it. Wake at 7,030. Grind fair trade beans. Read The New Yorker while Sophie scrolled through Pinterest beside him. Teach a few brilliant undergrads who loved his ironic t-shirts and well-timed Borges references. Hold office hours. Eat a quinoa salad. Go home. Cuddle Rilke on the couch while Sophie cooked her famous mushroom risotto. Maybe wine. Maybe a movie. Sex on weekends. Buy it. Earnest. Respectful. Lights out by 11. It was nice. It was stable. It was slowly killing him. Mark couldn't pinpoint when the itch started. It wasn't anything extreme. He didn't crave a motorcycle or a red convertible. He wasn't tempted to run off to Spain and write poetry. No, it was subtler than that, a dull, constant whisper in the back of his mind that said, is this really all there is? A creeping, gnawing hollowness that chewed at the edges of his life, one perfect beige moment at a time. He began to notice it in the silences, in the long, comfortable pauses between conversations with Sophie, in the way Rilke always curled up in the exact same position, in how his students smiled politely when he launched into yet another lecture about the recursive absurdity of late capitalism. God, do I even care anymore? He thought, one afternoon, staring at his own PowerPoint like it was a stranger's diary. That night, Mark sat alone on the couch, his laptop propped on a pillow, glasses halfway down his nose. Sophie was upstairs taking a bath, a soft playlist of indie folk playing from the bathroom speaker. The room was warm and filled with the gentle smell of eucalyptus and jasmine, and yet Mark felt cold inside. Dinner had been kale and lentils. Sophie was upstairs with a podcast and a face mask. The dog had gone to sleep in his usual spot, curled like a comma on the woven rug. Mark sat at the kitchen table, laptop open, sipping a glass of Spanish red he couldn't pronounce, grading a few last essays, clicking through tabs, watching the cursor blink. He opened Instagram, not expecting much. It was the usual, engagement announcements, artisanal cocktails, someone's dog in a Halloween costume. Then, a flicker of motion caught his eye. And then on social media, a flicker. A strange, almost clumsy ad for something called Lily's POV/immersivegirl.life. Low-key. Off-brand. Looked like some kind of art project or VR experiment. Mark clicked. All real, the site read. All me. Step in. Stay as long as you like. No plot, just presence. 360 immersive experience. Headset recommended. He was ready to close it out. Then, he saw the face in the thumbnail. Lily Rosario. From his cultural theory class last fall. She'd only been in class for a few weeks. Hispanic girl, dark honey skin, high cheekbones, gold hoop earrings, always late, always tired, always gorgeous. She barely spoke but turned in one absolutely brilliant paper on Baudrillard and Instagram thirst traps. Then she disappeared. Mark had assumed she'd dropped out, but here she was again. Without thinking much about it, Mark stood up, crossed the room, and finally opened the MetaQuest box. The MetaQuest headset had been sitting on Mark Whittaker's shelf for nearly a year, still in its box. A Christmas gift from Sophie, back when she was convinced they'd start gaming together as a couple, maybe something quirky and co-op, like virtual cooking. They never got around to it. Neither of them really gamed. The headset became a bookend. The headset powered on with a soft hum. A menu appeared. Standard tutorial. He fumbled through the setup like an old man at a laser tag arena. Then the program launched. At first it was just a room. Tiny. Warm. He moved his controller and awkwardly pulled up the web browser, which popped up in front of him, looking 10 feet tall. A little fumbling with the virtual keyboard. He adjusted the straps, fumbled with the controllers, and clicked play. There was no screen, no frame, no distance. He was in a room, not looking at it in it. The air felt still and warm. The curtains moved faintly, like the world was breathing. A breeze he couldn't actually feel brushed his skin, but somehow he felt it anyway, just the suggestion of it, across bare legs that weren't his. Mark did a double take and looked down and saw her legs stretched out in front of him, smooth, tan, bare from mid-thigh downward, the hem of a soft pink skirt barely grazing them. Her hand his hand, he realized with a jolt reached lazily for a glass of water on the side table. Nails painted lavender, delicate fingers, thin wrist. He flexed instinctively. The fingers didn't move. Of course they didn't. It was a video. He looked up, looked down, felt the presence or where Lily was standing. His vision swayed slightly as the body moved, her body Lily's shifting upright. A stretch, a sigh. She rose and padded to the window, and as she opened the curtains with a sleepy yawn, golden sunlight flooded the room. And Mark gasped, because he could feel it. It wasn't heat, exactly, but the moment the sun filled the space, his body tingled like something inside him recognized morning. Like his skin missed that light and finally got it back. His chest felt warm and light, like someone had just hugged him from the inside. His heart pounded as he turned his gaze. He looked at the couch, at the glowing street outside, then back at the slim body standing barefoot in the sun. He looked down again down at her legs, her stomach, the delicate rise of her chest as she breathed in. This wasn't watching a video. This wasn't even ver as he understood it. This was presence. This was being. He reached instinctively for the leg, expecting to feel Lily's smooth thighs. But his hands only met air. He laughed. A dry, stunned, half sound. And then he didn't laugh at all, because Lily moved again, and he followed her with his eyes, not like a cameraman, but like it was him walking through that apartment, like it was his life now, her life. His mind spun. This was immersive. This was impossibly immersive. Nothing was happening. That was the strange part. No plot, no climax, just being. The video went on. She walked through the apartment in a loose tee and pink skirt, brushed her hair, opened the fridge, snacked on pineapple slices, watched a show in Spanish with subtitles off. The sounds were rich and ordinary. Water from the faucet, crickets outside, the scrape of her nails on a glass jar. Mark forgot he was watching something. His chest rose and fell in time with hers. When the camera looked down at her hands painting her toenails or flipping through a notebook, he felt his own fingers twitch. He wasn't turned on, exactly. He was just absorbed. By the time the video ended 45 minutes later, Mark took off the headset and sat perfectly still. The kitchen looked too sharp, too cool, too sterile. He'd forgotten about his wine. His phone had buzzed twice. The dog had moved to another room. The real world had happened without him. He didn't go back to grading. Instead, he went back to the page. There were more videos. Rain day. Trying on skirts before practice. I made too much ramen again, lol. Market street walk. No shoes. Felt sad today. Each one was long 30, 40, sometimes over an hour. They weren't performances. They were just slices. Soft, mundane, quiet. Lily stretching in front of the mirror. Lily reading on her stomach. Lily flipping a hair tie between her fingers while watching the sky. It was addictive. Not in the way porn was addictive. Not even like a show you binge. This was something slower, deeper. Mark felt like he had gone somewhere, like he'd briefly been someone else. Sophie came down later, yawning and wrapped in a robe. "You still up?" she asked, walking to the sink. "You look weird." Mark blinked, like waking from a nap. "Yeah, just trying the VAR headset finally. The one you got me last Christmas." "Oh," she said. "Fun?" He hesitated. "Yeah, super realistic." She smiled, kissed his forehead, and went to bed. Mark waited until she was gone, then loaded another video, and another. He had no idea where this would lead, or why he suddenly felt like his own skin didn't quite fit. All he knew was that this strange, quiet girl had built a world he wanted to disappear into, and that night, for the first time in months, he fell asleep smiling. The next evening, Mark poured himself another glass of that same bottle of wine, not because he liked it, but because it was what he'd had the night before. Something about ritual felt right, predictable. A little red, a dim light, the dog snoring somewhere nearby, and the meta quest on the table, waiting. He sat down, slid the headset on. Lily's POV just a chill day. The title didn't promise anything. No adventure, no drama, just Lily on a couch. Perfect. From the moment the headset clicked in, Mark felt himself exhale. It was strange he hadn't even realised how tight his shoulders were, how clenched his jaw had gotten from the grind of emails and grocery lists and lesson plans and conversations that went nowhere. But inside Lily's apartment, none of that existed. The familiar pink couch, the low hum of the air conditioner, a background video game soundtrack playing faintly from her TV. She was sprawled sideways across the cushions, legs bare and glowing in the filtered afternoon light. A pale green crop top, a skirt the colour of strawberries. One leg bent, the other draped lazily off the side of the couch, her toes barely brushing the floor. She was watching some sci-fi movie with subtitles. Mark couldn't tell if she was actually into it or just letting it play. Her phone buzzed once on the armrest, but she didn't answer. She twirled a lock of hair, sipped soda through a pink straw, and Mark just watched, or rather, looked around. It was impossible not to notice how casually beautiful she was. The curve of her thighs disappearing beneath the hem of that tiny skirt, the way her chest rose and fell, slow and rhythmic. The play of shadows along her collarbone. He kept glancing away out the window, at the TV, at her painted toes, but his gaze always came back to her. There was no story, but it felt like something was happening anyway. About 20 minutes in, she shifted and rolled onto her back, one arm flung over her eyes, the other hand rested on her belly. Mark was there the whole time, watching from inside, not outside. Lily let out a little sigh. The sci-fi movie played on, and then, slowly, she dozed off. Her breathing deepened. The room settled into a kind of hush. Mark felt his own heartbeat slow to match hers. Time passed strangely. There was no sense of scene change or cut, just the stillness of a room holding one beautiful girl and one invisible passenger him. When the video ended with a gentle fade-out, Mark ripped off the headset and sucked in air like he'd been underwater. He looked around his real kitchen. The dog was gone. Sophie was out. Or maybe upstairs already. He hadn't heard her come in. The empty wine glass was sweating. He told himself it was just curiosity, just a novelty. Who wouldn't be fascinated by something that real? It wasn't about Lily, not really. It was about the technology, the art of it, how something so still could feel so intimate. That's what he told himself the next night. And the next. And the next. He started seeking out the longest, slowest videos. Lily's POV/lazy Sunday plus journaling rain, sounds plus spaghetti dinner, accidentally fell asleep, watching old cartoons, lol they were unhurried, unscripted. She wandered barefoot around her apartment, flopped onto the bed, made a smoothie, wrote in a notebook. Sometimes she sang under her breath. Sometimes she curled up under a pink throw blanket and fell asleep halfway through a dumb cartoon. And Mark lived it. Mark was her. Mark sat in the headset for entire evenings now. He found he liked the videos best when nothing happened. Just that sense of being in a body that wasn't his. A life that wasn't his. He didn't move. He didn't fidget. He didn't even need to touch the controller. It was just being there, as her, or near her, or with her. Whatever it was, it made everything else feel cheap and overexposed. His relationship with Sophie began to feel like one of those awkward phone calls where both people talk at once and no one really listens. She'd come down and find him at the kitchen table, the headset nearby. "You gonna play that thing again tonight?" "It's not really a game," he said once, too quickly. "Right," she smirked. "Well, if you ever want to hang out, I'm upstairs." He smiled back, but it felt thin. They hadn't had sex in, well, it wasn't like he was keeping score, but it was definitely noticeable now. He'd started going to bed later than her, always saying he had work to finish, papers to read, something. He wasn't lying, there were always essays to grade. But most nights, that headset was already warming in his lap. And still, he told himself it was just curiosity. But he knew how his routine had changed, how his thoughts wandered during the day, how he checked the app for new uploads during lunch, during passing periods, even once while he was on the toilet between classes. It wasn't obsession. It was just interest, fascination, a weird sort of admiration. Nothing wrong with that. Nothing really wrong. He hadn't done anything after all. Not yet. It started with a username, a blank Instagram profile. No posts, no mutuals, just a name that sounded vaguely European artsy but anonymous. Mark chose it, half-jokingly. Arno Vellum. It sounded like something out of a gallery label. Something tasteful, detached. He created the burner account on a quiet Thursday night, wine again in hand, the dog curled up at his feet. The MetaQuest sat on the counter, recharging, a faint blue glow pulsing like it was breathing, waiting. Mark wasn't sure exactly what he was doing, only that watching wasn't enough anymore. He needed something different. He started small, a DM, polite, respectful, borderline formal. "Hello, I love your work. I was wondering if you do commissions. I'd be willing to pay well for custom 360 content, non-explicit. I'm interested in immersive realism, slow, daily life, personal moments. If you're open to that, I'd love to discuss details." He didn't expect a reply. but she messaged back 4 days later. Hey, what kind of stuff are you asking for? Mark's heart kicked a little when he saw the notification. The conversation felt like handling glass fragile and thrilling. Moments like you brushing your hair before bed, watching TV in costume, drinking tea, and staring out the window, lying down after a long day. The ordinary things, just deeply felt. I'd want them in VVR 360 format. If you're interested, I can pay $500 per video, maybe more, depending on length. It was a lot of money. He knew that. She didn't reply for almost a week. When she did, it was blunt. You're serious about the money? He said yes. She sent him a PayPal and a wink emoji. Then, simply, I'll start tomorrow. The first video came a few days later. Custom for AV, hairbrushing plus pajamas, Mark downloaded it immediately. Slid on the headset like a guilty ritual. He was in her bedroom. The lights were dim, golden. Fairy lights twinkled along the curtain rod. Lily stood in front of a long mirror. From the camera's perspective, Mark sat on the edge of her bed, watching. She wore soft pajama shorts and a tank top thin, loose, casual. Her hair fell in thick waves down her back, dark as molasses. Her skin was warm brown, gold-toned in the light. Every movement subtly sensual, without meaning to be. On the eyes, she wore her 360 sunglasses. Aside from the incongruity of wearing slightly chunky glasses indoors, one would hardly know it was a camera system, with a wrap-around lens on each side of the frame. Lily didn't say anything, just hummed a little, ran the brush through her hair with long, practiced strokes, shifted her weight from one foot to the other. Mark could look anywhere, the cluttered desk to his right, a little pile of books on the floor, a hoodie tossed over the chair. But he kept turning back to her, the quiet drag of the brush, the way she'd pause and look at herself in the mirror with that expression serious, almost vulnerable, like she wasn't sure who she was seeing anymore. 10 minutes in, she climbed onto the bed his POV and curled up with her phone, watching TikTok videos. Sometimes she would giggle at a funny one. Mark giggled along with her. Was it out loud? At the end, she just stared at the screen, then sighed, deeply, like all the weight of the day had caught up to her at once. Then, fade to black. Mark pulled the headset off and just sat there. It was the most intimate thing he'd ever seen. Not sexy exactly, but somehow more than that. She'd done it for him, and he paid for it. The second video came a few days later. Custom for AV/witch, costume plus, popcorn plus movie. This time she dressed up. Short skirt, striped tights, little pointed hat. She lit a pumpkin candle, put on Hocus Pocus, sat on the couch with a big bowl of popcorn and kicked her feet up. Sometimes she laughed at the screen, sometimes she stared out the window. Once, she glanced toward the mirror toward him and smiled. A half smile, slow and private. Mark felt like he was inside her life, existing in her space, in her rituals, her rhythms. And Lily didn't seem to mind. He ordered more. One where she listened to music while cleaning the kitchen. One where she lounged in a tank top and thigh-high socks painting her toes. One where she tried on 3 different Halloween costumes: schoolgirl, angel, nurse, and then just sat on the couch scrolling her phone. No plot, no instruction, just Lily being. She never said his name, never acknowledged the relation directly, but over time, the tone shifted. She moved slower, posed a little longer, stretched in certain ways. She knew the gaze was there, and she didn't fight it. Mark told himself it was harmless, but he checked his burner more than his real account now. Set up alerts, bought more storage space, created folders, curated playlists, watched late into the night, while Sophie upstairs thought he was grading or sleeping or not in the mood. He told himself it wasn't porn. And it wasn't. Not technically. But it was something else. Something worse, maybe. More insidious. Control. He was paying her to be. To exist in a particular way. And she let him. Sophie started noticing the distance. "You've been weird lately," she said one night, not unkindly. Mark blinked at her, guilty and blank. "Huh? I dunno. Just not here, like you're floating around somewhere else." He didn't deny it. Just smiled. Just tired, I guess. She didn't believe him. Not really. But she didn't push. Not yet. Meanwhile, Lily sent a new message. "Halloween's over. What kind of thing do you want next?" Mark's fingers hovered over the keyboard. He could ask for anything, and she would do it. No one really knew. No official post, no goodbye story, just silence. Lily vanished from the physical world like a fading ghost. Professors scratched their heads. Her classmates barely blinked. She was always half there anyway. Now she wasn't at all. Except for Mark. For Mark, she was more present than ever. At first, he told himself he didn't care that she'd dropped out again. He barely acknowledged it. But late at night, alone in his study, with the MetaQuest snug on his face and his feet tucked beneath a throw blanket, her absence from campus meant nothing. Because she was still there in his headset, in his living room, in his body almost. And now, she waited for him every night. The videos kept coming. Long ones, quiet ones, custom ones. Mark had created a rhythm, a ritual. Burner Instagram account, direct messages, transfer funds, Amazon links, descriptions. Try something soft today. Maybe that lavender skirt I sent? Hair in high pigtails. Natural makeup. Show me what your morning looks like. Really show me. Can you sit by the window for a while? Just exist. And she did. The 360 videos always started gently like slipping into warm water. There she was, Lily, in some sun-washed little apartment that looked like it hadn't seen air conditioning in weeks. The light came in golden and lazy. From her point of view, Mark could see everything she could her. Chipped nail polish, the cheap cotton shirt sliding off one shoulder, the floor fan buzzing quietly in the corner, the world lazily unfolding around her. In one video, she was standing in front of a mirror, trying on outfits. The camera her gaze flicked toward a short pleated skirt, then lingered on a lacy bralette that barely fit. She turned, looked at herself, sighed, adjusted her waistband, bent over to fix her sock. Mark could choose what to look at. He didn't have to stare at the mirror. He could turn his head, look at the cluttered makeup table, the flickering TV screen in the corner, or her long tan legs half tucked beneath her on the bed. If he let his mind relax, he could tune out. He could imagine that he was her. She never addressed the camera, never spoke. That was the trick. It was always from her perspective, always first person. That subtle bit of distance, the illusion of autonomy, kept the fantasy tight. No performer, no subject, just presence. But it was the most intimate thing Mark had ever experienced. One video was just her lying on her bed in a tank top and underwear, scrolling on her phone. No music, no jump cuts, just her sighs, her breath, her toes wiggling under the light sheet. The video ran 48 minutes. She fell asleep near the end. Mark watched the whole thing without moving once. The real world started to blur, dull at the edges. The food in his fridge expired without being touched. Sophie's voice became background noise hearing it, but not registering. She tried. Oh, she tried. Hey babe, you want to go out tonight? Mark blinked. I've got papers to grade. It's Friday. I know. It's just midterms. But it wasn't midterms. It was Lily. Sophie noticed. The way he didn't really see her anymore. The way his phone buzzed and he flinched. The way his laptop stayed open late, but nothing ever got written. She tried to crawl into his lap one night and kiss his neck, and he pulled away without thinking. It broke something in her face. Is there someone else? She asked flatly, days later. Mark blinked like he didn't understand English. No. God, no. That's not it. She stared. Then what is it? He didn't answer. Couldn't. How could he explain the need, the ache to be in someone else's skin? Sophie didn't cry. She just stood up from the couch, shook her head slowly, and walked to their bedroom. Mark sat there for a long time, staring into the dark. The next day, he transferred double the usual amount to Lily and sent a new message. Make the next one longer. I want to feel the whole day. It started with a 10-second clip in her story. YouTube says I can live stream now, haha. Mark messaged her instantly from his burner account. Do you ever live stream? She didn't respond at first. Not for a day. Then, maybe. Mark's throat tightened. He wired 5 times her usual rate. An hour later, she posted the link. The live streams were something else. No editing, no camera angles, just Lily. The same cheap apartment, the same heat, but alive. Mark slipped on the headset. This wasn't recorded. This was happening now. From the second he dropped in, he was her. He looked around her living room. There was a fan clicking away in the corner. It looked like she wasn't at her home, but on a trip somewhere. Really, it didn't matter. Lily's body, his body, for now, was sprawled out on the couch in a tank top and tiny cotton shorts. The TV was playing something dubbed in a language he didn't recognize. There was half a sandwich on the table. She scratched her thigh lazily. breathed, shifted. That was it. Mark couldn't move her, but he could look. And he did. He looked at the room, the scuffed tile, the fluttering curtain, a bra hanging off the kitchen chair like a quiet invitation. He turned his gaze back down to her knees, to her thighs smooth and sun-kissed and folded beneath her, the soft rise of her stomach as she breathed. Sometimes she sang quietly, off-key. Sometimes she stretched out and let one arm dangle to the floor. Sometimes she got up, walked to the kitchen, filled a glass with water, then came back and slumped again. The stream lasted 3 hours. Nothing happened. Mark was spellbound. It became his evening ritual. Every few days, another link, another day in the life. Lily brushing her hair while humming. Lily standing in front of the mirror in a Halloween cat costume tail, and all then flopping onto her bed with her phone and giggling at memes. Lily napping on the floor with the AC unit humming above. Mark would sit frozen in his office, headset on, earbuds in, time evaporating. The world inside the headset wasn't scripted. It wasn't even particularly sexy, but it felt real, raw, private, his. The live aspect made it worse or better. There were others watching the video. He could see a view count, but none of them saw what he saw. None of them understood what he understood. He had been here since the beginning. He had crafted her look. He had picked out those skirts, that blush shade, that slightly too tight t-shirt. She was his, even if she didn't know it, even if he never touched her. In one stream, the headset came to life with a flicker, and he found himself staring at her own reflection in the bathroom mirror. She wasn't filming. She was just standing there, staring at herself, touching her face, tilting her head like she wasn't sure who she saw. Mark couldn't breathe. The intimacy felt criminal. She lingered there for a long time. He wondered, does she forget the camera's even on? Back in the real world, things were worse than ever. Sophie had moved into the guest room to think. She said it lightly, like it was just a weekend reset, but she didn't move back. The bed stayed cold. Mark didn't even pretend anymore. He was waiting for Lily. He sent another payment. This one was huge. Just live stream the whole day, wake up to bedtime, don't do anything special. Just be. The reply was only one word. Okay. Mark smiled. Then he turned off the lights, set his headset on the desk, and waited. It didn't happen in a single moment. Not all at once. Reality frayed in whispers, in small omissions. First, it was his office hours skipped without thinking. Then, his lectures grew scattered. Slides in the wrong order. A class left waiting, while he stared blankly at the board, mind elsewhere. Students exchanged glances, unsure what had changed, but sensing something had. Mark didn't notice. He didn't care. The Meta headset stayed plugged in now, fully charged, always ready. Now, when he put it on, the room melted away, and Lily's world unfolded around him like velvet, warm, humming with quiet light, scented with shampoo and lotion, cluttered with pastel chaos. He didn't just watch her anymore. He was her, hour after hour. He sat at her little table, flipping through magazines he couldn't read. He ran delicate fingers through thick, dark hair, twisting strands without thought. He let out sighs that weren't his, but felt so natural, so needed. Her body was a whisper-soft prison he never wanted to escape from. The stretch of her spine when she reached for a mug in the kitchen. The ache in her lower back after standing too long at the mirror. The tickle of breeze up the hem of a tiny skirt when she stood near the window. He curled Lily's toes against the cool tile floor, just to feel it, over and over. His own body? Forgotten. He hadn't showered in days. Takeout containers piled around his desk like fossilized remnants of another life. His phone lit up with messages from Sophie, from colleagues. He ignored them all. Because this was the real thing. Not the classroom. Not the bed he barely slept in. Not the man he was. He belonged in Lily's world now. That soft cocoon of filtered light and whispered breath. The one place where everything was slow and sensual and simple. The line between watching and being, it broke like thin glass, shattered. And when the pieces hit the ground, Mark didn't even look down. He just kept brushing Lily's hair, smiling her smile, breathing her breath. It was late. The bedroom was dark. Outside, traffic hushed to a low hum. The city breathed its warm, humid sighs through the cracked window. Mark was lying on his back, the MetaQuest strapped tightly to his face, its padded edges pressing faint pink marks into his temples. One hand curled lightly against his chest. The other limp rested on the rumpled sheet beside him. His breathing was soft, rhythmic, almost feminine. A delicate moan slipped from his throat. Inside the headset, Lily's apartment buzzed in its lazy, enchanted hum. It was evening there. She was on the couch, sprawled on her stomach, hair a glossy fan across a throw pillow. Her underwear a pastel set that Mark had requested clung to her like satin shadows. The camera was still rolling. He could look anywhere. He could turn his head and see the mess in the kitchen, the glow of the TV playing some telenovela rerun, the half-finished iced coffee on the table. But he didn't. He looked at her, at the rise and fall of her back, at the curve of her thigh, the wrinkle in the blanket that didn't quite cover her. He felt it all, her quiet breath, her shallow dreams, her loneliness. It wasn't erotic. It was intimate. Too intimate. The door creaked. Mark didn't move. "Sophie?" he murmured, not even knowing he spoke. She stood in the doorway, frozen. She'd come home early, her bag still slung over her shoulder, keys in her hand. She saw the headset first, then the way he lay there, transfixed and sighing softly, longingly. She stepped forward. "Mark?" Still nothing. She walked across the room and yanked the headset from his face. He blinked like he'd been pulled from underwater, mouth slightly open, pupils wide. Sophie stared at the screen, still glowing inside the headset's lens. Lily, lying on a couch, wearing almost nothing, her body curled like a cat's, peaceful, vulnerable. Sophie gasped like the air had been stolen from her lungs. "What is this?" Mark sat up, tried to speak. No words came. "I asked you, what the hell is this, Mark?" It's not what it looks like," he stammered, voice hoarse, distant. "I mean, it's not sexual." "Oh, that makes it fine," her voice cracked. "It's just you in bed, moaning while you watch another woman sleep?" He looked down, face flushed with shame, with something else too longing, ache. "I don't know how to explain it," he whispered. "It's not just watching. I need it. I need to feel like I'm her." For a little while, silence. Sophie's eyes shimmered, then hardened. She didn't yell. She just stepped back. Quiet, clean, final. "I can't do this." He reached for her hand, but she stepped away. "Don't." The door clicked softly behind her. Mark sat there, trembling, in the dark. The headset still humming beside him, calling. He lost time. Days folded into each other like badly shuffled cards coffee turning cold. Mail piling at the door. The cat meowing once and giving up. Mark didn't care. He was always logged in. The headset became his second skin-worn in bed, at the table, in the bath, until it shorted out once, and he had to order a new one overnight. He barely remembered cancelling his lectures. The email from the principal had been, "Kind, almost. Take the rest of the semester. We'll cover for you. Get some help, Mark." But what did they know? They didn't understand what it meant to be her, Lily. To feel the echo of her yawns stretch down through slender arms. To balance on one leg while brushing her teeth in a loose tank top and nothing else. To sway her hips not with intention, but because that was just how her body moved. She was real. He was real. In her. Every video became a portal. Each one long, quiet, unhurried Lily folding laundry in front of a fan, drawing soft spirals on the fogged mirror after a shower, picking at a salad she didn't want but made anyway. He knew the layout of her apartment better than his own. The chipped tile by the fridge, the slightly tilted picture of a hummingbird above the couch, the way the light shifted across her hardwood floor around 4 in the afternoon. But one day, it changed. It began like any other stream. Lily was in the living room, adjusting the straps of a summery dress with one hand, phone in the other. The window was cracked. The sounds of motorbikes and distant shouting drifted in a lazy Vietnamese afternoon. In the far distance, through the window, Mark could see the beach. Mark relaxed. Lily set the phone down on the coffee table, took a long sip from a neon straw, and collapsed backward onto the couch with a groan. He smiled. Then footsteps. He blinked. Someone else was there. The door creaked. Mark turned, catching the movement just over Lily's shoulder. It was Sophie. His breath caught. It physically hurt. She looked the same jeans, loose ponytail, dark smudge under one eye like she hadn't been sleeping. She walked into Lily's space like she belonged there. No one screamed. No one acted surprised. Sophie sat next to Lily and smiled. A soft, private smile. Then, both women turned and looked directly at the mirror. At him. Mark's chest hollowed. He tried to speak, but there was no mic, no input, no presence. Just the illusion of choice. He could turn his head. He could look. But he couldn't leave. They knew he was watching. They wanted him to. After that, the videos came every day. Shorter, but sometimes 5 in 24 hours. Lily and Sophie brushing their teeth together, sharing breakfast, laughing softly at something on a phone screen. Sophie touching Lily's shoulder in that absent, unconscious way that meant everything. Lily leaning into it like she'd been waiting for it all day. They kissed sometimes, slowly, casually, with the weight of something that had already happened, over and over, off camera. Mark watched every moment, but it was different now. He didn't eat, didn't shower, just slipped deeper and deeper into the headset, into the flickering sunlit apartment that no longer responded to his presence. Sophie hadn't left him. She'd crossed over. And now, she was real. He was the ghost. The requests stopped mattering. He still sent them long, thoughtful messages through the same encrypted channel, his burner account now bloated with unread receipts and desperate pleas. Lily, could you do something quiet again? Like just reading on the couch? Maybe wear that soft blue tank top again? Please. Can Sophie sit next to you for a while and just touch your hair? No reply. Not even a scene notification. But the videos kept coming. Lily still filmed. Every few hours, a new upload appeared. Except he wasn't the one being offered anything anymore. These weren't for him. They were for each other. The first time Sophie kissed Lily in the videos, really kissed her Mark, had to tear the headset off. His heart was pounding. Not out of jealousy exactly, or arousal. It was confusion. Overwhelming, suffocating confusion. He had lived it before. Now he was living it again, but as her. Lily's mouth, warm and soft, opening just slightly. The catch of breath, the shift of weight. The hand that slid slowly up her ribs, under the shirt, lingering. It was all his body, or the one he wore. And Sophie? Sophie didn't look at him. She looked at Lily. She kissed Lily, held Lily, whispered things to Lily that Mark couldn't hear, even in surround sound, even with his head tilted toward the whisper. He was there, but he wasn't. At first, he tried to convince himself it was all fantasy, something pre-recorded, a clever manipulation. But the details were too raw. Too alive. Sophie brought coffee sometimes, wore new earrings, mentioned things happening in the world, things that had only just happened. The videos were now. They were living. Together. Lily brushed her hair more often, wore dresses that Sophie seemed to like. She cooked sometimes, badly, and they laughed when it didn't go well. Sophie tried to teach her card games. Lily always cheated. They watched movies late at night and left the camera running. He could hear the credits roll, the dull hum of air conditioning, the low murmur of whispered nothings. Looked to his right as see Sophie lying next to him. He watched all of it, unable to look away. And always, the same sensation, his hands smoothing lotion into Lily's legs, but not his choice. His mouth opening for Sophie's, but not his kiss. His body arching at a gentle caress, but not his desire. He remembered what it felt like to kiss Sophie as Mark, to touch her with his hands, to have her reach for him. And then he would feel Lily's fingers skim along Sophie's jaw, would see Sophie's pupils dilate, her breath catch, would feel Sophie climb into Lily's lap and let herself fall. Every smile Sophie gave was for Lily. Every kiss landed on skin he felt, but didn't own. He stopped leaving the apartment altogether. The headset became his world, his only world. Sometimes he thought about taking it off permanently, just leaving it on, living there until his real body gave out. It didn't seem like that bad of a death, better than being nothing, better than being Mark. Because Mark was gone now, a ghost, a set of useless hands, and a beard he hadn't shaved in weeks. But Lily? Lily had everything.